You're listening to the Artist First World Radio Network, artistfirst.com. Tony Kay in the studio. Thank you for joining Authors First. If you are an author or independent recorded artist, we'd love to hear from you. Simply visit our website at artistfirst.com and follow the links. Perhaps you have a unique idea for a weekly show or a not-for-profit organization you'd enjoy promoting. Follow the link provided at artistfirst.com and just ask for Tony Kay. This hour on Authors First, it's my privilege to interview Leroy Z. You're going to learn fascinating ideas to help protect yourself during this hour, so have a good time. Leroy Z, our author this hour. And, of course, if you're on your social networks, Facebook, Twitter, and other outlets of communication, maybe you're a blogger, we want you to share the information that Leroy Z is going to present this hour. For your convenience, we have the web link provided if you're listening to the rebroadcast, and we invite you to share this show with everyone you know. Let's give a warm Artist First welcome to our guest. How do you do, Leroy Z?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity for having me.
Wow, how exciting for you to really take what many people would think to be a discouragement in the sense of abuse by the system and turn it into something a lot more useful.
Basically, it's all about having access to knowledge, having confidence once you get that knowledge, and going into court, articulating your position, and being able to present yourself in a clear manner so where you can be understood.
You know, all of us at one time or another are going to have our run-in with the law. And that's why I'm glad you've written this book, a very useful book, Leroy Z, author of How to Uphold Your Legal Rights versus the Police. Whoa. You know, and we hear about all kinds of abuse nationwide by those in law enforcement, and I do not in any way, shape, or form, right up front, audience, I'm not throwing stones at every law enforcement person out there, okay? In a bunch, you might have a few that are bad, okay? And it's the rest of their job and our job to help police the system. But Leroy, tell us a little bit about the background of your experience of what brought you to this revelation that you have these tools and that you wanted to write this book.
Well, what motivated me to write this particular book is just a matter of seeing individuals going in and out of court being sentenced to a sentence where if they had the information or they knew where to go get the correct statute, take it into court, or in any other situation, have an itemization of what they needed to do in order to get out on bond, or if they didn't have the money to make bond, they could meet the conditions to sign their own, get out via their own recognizance. So I decided to put this work together and disseminate it to the world. Now, the information is for North America. Doesn't pertain to every jurisdiction. It's pertained particularly to Georgia, but the information can be used uniformly.
Yeah, well, you know, we're trying, I believe, as a society to put more and more of our data online.
Correct.
So are you providing then the idea that you as a consumer and you've been out driving your automobile or whatever the case may be, that you can actually go online and discover methods of defending yourself, or do you also suggest going to periodicals or particular location where those laws are housed?
Well, you can go to our website, www.arcticbooks.us, and review the content of the website. And if you would like to order a book, you can order the book, and it contains statutes in that publication. But if you didn't want to take that route, you can go to your local law library, which is normally in any courthouse, or you can go to any law school and review their periodicals, view their statutes, their books, and so forth.
Well, Leroy Z,
It's just Leroy.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
I read it as I see it.
I got you. I got you.
There it is on our website. So, but Leroy, are you then thinking that we as the public really have surrendered too much of our intellectual property to others, like attorneys or the judge, that they might just know these statutes and use them for our benefit?
Well, the system isn't designed to give you information. If you go to court on a citation, the judge he's going to tell you what your rights are, but he's not going to tell you what avenue is beneficial to you to be exonerated on that charge.
Yeah, he's not going to represent you in any way, shape, or form.
And if you don't hire an attorney, you can also get a public defender. But even in that instance, a public defender has a list of clients that he's been appointed to represent, so he can't allocate all his time and resources to your representation. So in that situation, you need to have access to the research that will allow you to present yourself in court intelligently and get exonerated.
None of them will. No, listen, everyone, I don't care what you pay that attorney. $1,500, it won't matter. $5,000 retainer, no. You have to become proactive when it comes to the law and your involvement with it.
Well, and it's not an anti-government book, and it's not an anti-police book. It's just a book that lets you know that if you have a confrontation, the language that you need to present and the manner in which you need to conduct yourself, always be respectful, but you also have to be assertive at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, you're standing between you and your neighbor on the other side of a fence, and his tree falls on your land. And in the process of examining the root structure, he gets upset with you, and now we have an altercation. So it can happen very easily. Or just, road rage, driving down the highway, minding your own business, bobbing to the music. The next thing you know, road rage. So we have to be. I recently saw on television where a gentleman had stuck his arm out of the window, and after the police officer pulled him over, and that was considered to be a hostile. The police officer took it in a hostile way and pulled his weapon and stuck it in the guy's face.
Well, that would be a isolated incident.
Yeah, but I mean, there you are. I mean, I'm just driving down the road, and the police officer pulls you over, and I just stuck my arm out and hung it out, and I'm waiting for him to walk up to the car.
Well, the police officer probably don't know what you have in your hand.
That's right.
You have to look at the flip side of that situation.
That's right. They don't know if there's a weapon in his coat, or he's trying to throw a distraction. Then the officer will be surprised. Yeah, you don't know.
But see, the difference with my particular book is the publication isn't trying to tell you what you should do. The publication just provides you with the information on what the particular law is, what the criteria is that you have to meet in order to satisfy with the whatever situation or condition you're trying to get out of.
All right. This is a big, big topic. Look, if you're a blogger, you're out there on the internet, I'm sure you have your story to share. Leroy, is there a mechanism for an audience to actually respond with their particular story or ask for advice?
Well, we don't necessarily provide the advice. If you want to find out the chapters that's in the book, you will go to the website.
ArcticBooks.us.
Right. Then what you would do is you would just read the information that we have that's free. If you wanted to go in depth, then we could send you the book if you wanted to order the particular publication.
This country, the United States of America, spends billions and billions of dollars fighting the war on drugs. And it's a big revenue stream. In our little community here, you could look in the town paper and you'll find 25 arrests, and 15 of them are drug-related. It's huge. It's massive. Underground trade of marijuana and other substances is huge. It's everywhere in our culture, and I would imagine that many of our listeners at one time or another can say, sure, I know a couple drug dealers. One of them lives right across the street from me, or is my brother or my sister, or served time for such a thing. It's prevalent everywhere. And you have some knowledge and experience of narcotics, and you are a former narcotic entrepreneur turned author publisher.
No, that's a little bit inaccurate. I think a lot of people come to that conclusion once you look at the website. You can draw an inference from that.
That's right. I wanted that. That's why we're talking about Leroy. Clarify it.
Right. Well, what it is, I'm not afraid to talk about that subject, so a lot of people can draw that inference. But what an individual has to understand, once when you become political and you start backing and supporting political candidates, you're going to get a lot of negative heat and a lot of negative energy is going to come your way, and you're going to be subjected to arrest. A police officer can arrest you for anything that he wants to. It's up to him to go into court and the solicitor to prove that charge. It's up to me to defend myself and to show where I'm innocent.
Yeah, and it could be just he was belligerent. He was disrespectful of my badge.
Not necessarily that. You have to understand, a police officer works for the municipality. He works for the government, and if he receives a directive where he needs to write a certain amount of tickets, or this particular person is a subject of interest, and we need to view him and pay attention to him, then he has an incentive to come after you in such a way that will eliminate you.
Yeah. Well, I'm wanted to know if the whole subject of, well, you've answered the question. You're not a former narcotic entrepreneur turned author publisher. I'm a writer. I'm a writer. But your website. But your website, when you go to arcticbooks.us,
right?
You, as you stated, you could have that inference. You could draw that inference. You could say, I think he is. I think he was.
No, well, I can understand that, but
Okay.
like I said before, once when you become political and you successfully support candidates who run for office, whether it's your local city council person, it's your mayor, it's the president of the United States, whomever, you're going to draw a certain amount of attention that's not going to be favorable, and people are going to try to discredit you. Then it's going to be up to you, if you don't have the resources to go out and retain a high-powered attorney, or if you are appointed a public defender and you go into court and you're not satisfied with the representation that you get, and you've depleted all your resources, then our website and our publication is an avenue that an individual can come to who's representing themselves, who has confidence with their ability to speak, with their confidence to go before a jury, with their confidence to go before a judge and not feel intimidated, and represent themselves based upon the content and the subject matter that's in the book.
I think that you're more of the cuff of Ron Chipsick and Will Horib of Crime Beat, investigative journalists, people who have an interest in a topic and are not afraid to go out and learn as much as they can and interview and talk to people who know and then write about the topic.
Well, basically what the book is just research. It's research. case law of cases that's previously been decided. For instance, if you want to be released on your own recognizance, it lists the itemization of elements that you have to satisfy in order to sign your own bond if you don't have the money to make bond.
How many people behind bars, in prison, federal or state or local, develop a keen interest in the law? A lot.
Well, even if you're not, you need to develop a keen interest before it even gets to that stage where you are behind bars. You need to learn it so you don't get to that point.
Yeah, because it's rough to get internet access.
Well, what you have is you have the law library that an inmate can go to, but that's only a certain duration amount during the day that you're allowed to do that. But then you're under conditions where you can't fully represent yourself. So you need to get a publication like ours before you get to that stage.
Leroy, we touched on what motivated you to publish these books, but at the same time, why this interest? Where did it come from?
Well, I've been in cities like New Orleans. I've been in Miami. Currently, I'm in Clayton County, Georgia, and I go into courts. I go into the courts just to go to the library, and I go through the section where they have people sitting outside in chairs that's pleaded guilty or been found guilty, and they're going to accept probation. When in essence, if they just had maybe they were innocent, didn't have the confidence to go ahead and try the case because they didn't have access to the correct information, so they decide just go ahead and pay the fine or get on probation, get an extension, which is an extension of time to pay the fine, then just have that on your record. When if you had the correct information, you didn't have to go through any of that. And that's where I come in with this publication.
I understand that. But, Leroy, what I mean is this passion, this deep intellectual interest that makes you go, where did that come from? I mean, you could have had that passion for sports or horses.
Well, when you see people getting beat when it's not necessary, or people getting subject to a stressful situation, when if you just had the correct information, or if you knew how to file a certain document, which we don't do, we just give you the forms and the guidelines that you need to file it, and we send the forms to you, which is included in the book, then all that could have been alleviated.
I think you've hit on something, Leroy. In other words, here we are. It's the very people that don't have access that need this information the most.
Right, but it's not for people like you at work. Someone goes break into your house, steal everything you work hard to get caught, then get my website, come to my website and order a book. It's not for that type of individual. It's for individuals who have just been maligned or accused and just don't know which way to go. It's not for the career criminal.
But you become as soon as you're accused, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But that rarely works, doesn't it? I mean, let's say you get picked up and you've been misidentified as a sexual predator. You look just like the guy. And they come knocking on your door, or you failed to register, whatever the case may be. All of a sudden, you're in the paper. You're written up. Everybody around, well, I didn't know he was that. You're already guilty.
Well, I can't really buy that. I believe that the way you behave and the way you respond, if someone comes knocking on your door, if a law enforcement officer comes knocking on your door, then evidently he has probable cause and a good enough suspicion to believe that you might be that person. But even if you are mistaken, it's still how you behave and how you respond to that. If you're innocent, it's eventually going to come out.
Well, I guess I was just making a common reference to Casey Anthony.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, that was a big case here in Florida. This is July of 2011. She's a free woman now, and her accusing her father of being a child molester and so forth in public on stand, or the attorney did, I guess, not her, but nonetheless, in a moment, you can find yourself needing legal counsel.
well, you could in that situation, but the hard problem to get over in that particular situation is if you go 30 to 31 days and you don't contact law enforcement that your child is missing, then that's pretty hard to get over. Because if I come home and my wife isn't here, okay, I'll say maybe tomorrow, maybe she's doing something. If she's not there in the morning, then I'm on the phone. And that afternoon, I'm calling law enforcement. But then again, that's the way I would behave. That doesn't mean she's guilty because she didn't report it. That just means that she behaves differently. People react differently under different circumstances.
Well, that's exactly right, and I suppose that's why there are so many nuances to the law, and why I'm delighted that you've spent the time thinking about this topic and writing on this subject to help the rest of us realize that there is a body of information we need to be able to access.
Right, and that's why we have the website, and that's why you can go on the website and you can see the success that I've had in my personal life in using the information that's contained in the publication.
arcticbooks.us. We'll put the link up next to the show, everyone, and I'm glad that Leroy has offered assistance and providing some prompt questions, because this is a sensitive issue for a lot of people. Either not understanding the content, the nature, like Leroy said, he's not out to allow the criminal to get off from their crime. It's a helpful book that can guide you through some hopefully not so earth-shattering problems, but let you know there are resources there to help your case.
And you also have to understand that the criminal justice system is a gladiator sport, so to speak. And what I mean by that is, if you don't have knowledge on how to articulate yourself when you get into court, then you need to have money which will allow you to obtain that representation. If you don't have the money, then you have to have the knowledge. If you don't have either or, then you're in trouble. If you have both of those, then you're more powerful in what you can do.
Well, you always have to be careful, Leroy, because some judges don't like it when the accused know the law.
Well, that could be true, but my experience has been is you have to just know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about, then you end up on the negative side.
And respect. Come on.
Right.
It's respect. If you go into the court and you're not approaching the bench with proper respect, then why would you expect to be respected?
Right. It's reciprocation.
Yes.
Right.
And unfortunately, those that are maybe streetwise aren't so heady when it comes to being court-wise.
Correct. I agree with you there.
Now, do you touch on politics in the book? Because I have two questions related. Which Republican and Democratic candidate are you considering supporting in 2012, or is it too soon?
No, it's not really too soon, because what you're seeing right now with the raising of the debt ceiling is a preview of 2012. I think the Republicans see that the candidates who are declared to run are not going to be able to defeat the president in 2012. So what they're trying to do, in my perspective, is try to damage him with this conflict right here, which the debt ceiling previously has been raised numerous times by his predecessor. But more than likely, I'll support a candidate who's wearing a dress in 2012 on the Republican side.
Do you think that government in general is out of control?
No, you can't really say that.
You don't think that our local, municipal, township governments all the way up the board are out of control?
No. That's why in most jurisdictions you can submit an open records request, and usually the government has 3 days to respond to you. And if they don't respond, you can go into court and enforce the response to come to you. So all governments have transparency. It's just a matter of you actually knowing that you have the opportunity to submit an open records request to get the information you're trying to get.
All right. Well, I'm not sure if we answered the question. Which Republican candidate are you supporting in 2012?
Well, I think that there's only one that wears a dress, and there's the field has all. I don't think everybody who's going to run has declared that they're going to run.
Well,
so I didn't actually provide a name, but if there's one who only wears a dress.
That's
right.
Well, no, there's two, but that's okay. We'll let it go.
Okay.
All right, and then which Democratic candidate are you going to support for 2012?
I think the president doesn't have any challenges. I supported the president in 2008, so my loyalty is there. But I'm a business person. I'm open to opportunities, but I'm still loyal at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I can sympathize with all of that. How did you feel about George W.'s 2 terms? George W. Bush, 2 terms.
Well, he came in a time where his generation and the people who grew up in his generation felt that he was right. It was the right season for him to be elected, and he did what he felt was in the best interest of the country. If you're Republican or Democratic, it really doesn't matter. It's not about the individual. It's about the office. And I don't think that's what you're seeing right now. You're not seeing a lot of respect for the office, where you have the Speaker of the House walking out of meetings and things of that nature. It's not the individual; it's the office.
Well, of course, George W. Bush, President Bush, was elected, and then September 1st, 2001, that we had the Twin Towers went down in his first few months of presidency. Is that correct?
I don't recall the timeline, but
I'm pretty sure that was right. 2000, he was elected November, took office January 2001, 9/11 September. 9 months later, the towers came down. Right?
I agree.
Then we went to work on a war. And then I thought the people said, well, we're re-electing you because we want you to finish this war and bring our guys home and gals home, right?
Correct. I agree with you on that.
And so I thought maybe everybody elected him a second time because they believed that he would finish the task and we would get out of Afghanistan and Iraq, right?
Sometimes everything don't go the way you plan for it to go.
Then that didn't happen after 8 years, so we said, well, we better bring in Barack because he is definitely 180,000% against the war and anxious to bring our troops home and anxious to close Gitmo and anxious to bring some economic development to the United States of America. Right?
I agree with you, but sometimes things don't go the way you have it planned.
Well, we were afraid of John McCain because we thought he would be a warmonger, support the military too much, and we'd never get out of Iraq and Afghanistan. Right?
I don't really know. You can't really make that call until you can't really make that call until that individual is elected. Now, if that individual was elected, then I could answer that question more in depth.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
It is so expensive to elect the president. They ought to be elected for 8 years, and that's all.
Okay.
In other words, you just go ahead and elect them for 8 years.
Okay.
I mean, because the next guy, he's going to come up and he's going to take 2 years to figure it out too, just like Barack had to.
Well,
You don't walk into the President of the United States and just know it.
Well, you know, like I say, you can have a forecast and you can plan the way you would like for it to go, but until you actually see it, it may be different from what it was on the outside. Once you get on the inside, it may be a little different. You have to maybe negotiate with people a little bit more extensively than you would like to.
I know that we like our presidents when they're dead, but that's another subject. Okay, so...
Well, I prefer to like them when they're here.
Well, no, I mean, we honor them more when they're gone.
I understand. They get on dollar bills, they get on coins,
exactly.
things of that nature. I understand what you're saying.
We love them more when they're gone than they do when they're here, okay? So, because there's always an opposition, always. But then when that person passes, then what do we want to remember? Only the good. Only the good. We want to remember only the good.
True.
Okay, so we'll wish all of our presidents of the United States of America the very best, with all their human frailty and their prejudices and their backgrounds and whatever the case may be that got them there. They're there now. So, you know, we'll wish them Godspeed, the best, and we'll just imagine if it were you or I, would we be any better off? Who knows?
Well, a lot of people, well, not a lot, maybe some people in a particular demographic would like for the president to be more attentive to one particular demographic, but most people have to understand that he's the president for all of Americans, which includes Latinos, African Americans, European, Asians, Italians, Cubans, Haitians, Jamaicans, Irish citizens, Indian citizens, senior citizens, and I can go on and on. He has to represent the whole block. You can't slice the pie any greater for one particular demographic than he would another.
That's right, and that's the struggle for every president.
Right,
and that's the nature of the office. That's
right.
Correct.
It has to be an equal cut of the pie for everyone, not any greater for any particular lobbyist or any particular group.
Well, why do we bring this up? People might think that we're moving away from the topic, but we're really not, because the federal government legislates laws that the judicial system interpret, and that creates attitudes about laws that you and I have every day. I was offended and felt it was ridiculous that the government was going to tell me that I had to use a belt in a car.
Okay.
And yet, I bet today that most of you listening to the sound of my voice, when you get in a car, you'd feel very uncomfortable if you didn't have that belt on.
Okay.
But when I grew up, that belt was 100% optional, and if a police officer pulled me over or gave me a ticket for it, it would be an invasion of my privacy.
Well, I think what happened was that when a police officer arrived on the scene of a car crash, that most of the victims were thrown from the vehicle. If they would have had the seatbelt on, they would not have lurched as far, and they maybe would have stayed in the vehicle and maybe would have had a greater chance of living.
That's right. So the only way to get the populace to do what's safe is to create the penalty and the law to go with it, and the mechanism to enforce it.
Correct. That's why the local governments, they're not out of control when they make laws of that nature. It's basically for the benefit of the citizenry.
And so you have a positive attitude about the criminal justice system in America today.
Right, because I understand it. It's all about knowledge. It also has to do with a lot with class, and how you go into court. If you go into court with T-shirts and shorts and rags on your hand, and you're not groomed properly, that's a perception that's created that's not in your favor. So what we try to do, and what's in the publication, is to show you how to take all that with the knowledge and articulate your position. It's all about knowing how to speak, then having the proper information when you do speak. That's all it's about. That's what going to court is all about, being able to speak with the correct information.
Do you think that our major U.S. cities and municipalities like New Orleans and Miami and Clayton County, Georgia, that the majority of the citizenry from those communities are from one particular demographic?
That's a really complicated issue.
It is, because if you take Cleveland, Ohio,
Right.
Ohio, and that's where I'm from, and then you look at the suburbs, and you say demographically, the suburbs are predominantly white people. And if you go into the city of Cleveland, and you say, well, the demographic there is predominantly African-American people.
Well, I think my concern on that question
So is it a
would be-
percentage? Now, but here's where it falls apart. Because even if you said, well, the percentage is 50-50, which it's not, but even if you said it was, well, would you go to jail and find 50-50? No.
It's just it's a real sensitive issue, and you can't really touch on it without being labeled. So what you just have to say, you just have to call it the way you see it. If you go, I feel as though mostly people who you see in jail or who you see getting constantly given citations, they just don't go into court and are willing to enforce their rights. So they just accept any type of offer that comes their way, and normally that's people of a particular demographic who have a lower earning capacity, and it's reflected when you go to jails.
Well, it's back to what you said before, knowledge.
Right,
Well,
right.
if you have knowledge and you're African American and you have a degree and now you're earning money, now you might be living in the suburbs.
Right.
Well, that's why, because you don't want to be where there's high crime.
Correct.
Regardless of if even if you are African American, you're not choosing. Once you make money, once you have economic stability, you're not going to choose an area to live in that's high crime.
Right. So
You don't want your kids growing up where they hear gunshots all night long.
You're absolutely correct.
And so those African Americans who could make a difference perhaps in a community are gone.
And what you have left is what you have left, and that could be in a rural community.
Detroit.
Right. Detroit may be an example, or it could be somewhere out in a rural community. You might have that, but it's a very sensitive subject. It's very hard to call, and I try to stay away from those type of issues.
Well, you're African American, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, have you ever been accused of being a sellout?
Well, yes, I have.
Yeah.
I mean,
and names too, right?
well, that's a situation where you can't win.
Right.
If you support a number of European candidates who are successful and they win office, then you're considered an Uncle Tom. But if you support 5 or 6 African American candidates and they win office, then you're considered too black. So you can't really. You have to try to draw the balance. And I'm not a race guy, so I don't get into all that. I deal with people based on what's coming out of them and what they're speaking to me.
And I think that's the problem, that people say, here is the law, here's what we have to live with. It's not a matter of African American or white or black. It's not all that. What it is, it's the law.
Correct. You're absolutely right.
And that is intended to be applied whether you're Asian, you're an American, you're born in the United States of America, then you are required to be under these laws, to be a citizen here.
Right. You have to be a law-abiding citizen.
And in the old days, it was just plain old common sense that I'm not going to drive down the road, and if I don't like the way you look, pull out a gun and shoot you.
Correct. You're absolutely
that
right.
was just like, that was a no-brainer. We didn't have to have a law for that. Now it's drive-by shooting.
Well, it's a rough call. It's a rough call, and hopefully those people who engage in that type of activity aren't the type of people who come to our website ordering a publication. But then again, we don't have any way to screen who's ordering a publication, but that's not the people that the website and the publication is intended for.
Now, the website audience, www, the three W's, .arcticbooks.us.
Correct.
We'll have the link beside this show. Be sure to look at the website. We've answered some very important questions that are raised all the time about Leroy Z, his material, his research, his book, who he is. And we want you to visit the website, but more importantly, we need you to buy the books. Because once you have the material in your hand, now it becomes a useful tool for yourself or others. You know, your kids, your grandkids, you know, they're running. You know, people don't run with all the time. Like I told my kids, if you run with hogs, you're going to get slop on you.
You're judged by the company that you keep.
You really are. And you could be at the right place at the wrong time because of somebody else's behavior and find yourself or find someone you love drawn into a circumstance, and you just don't know what to do about it.
Absolutely. And if you don't know what to do about it, then you come to our website. We can send you a complimentary chapter, or you can order the whole book, and you can get it. And I think you'll feel more comfortable when you have the information.
Now, Leroy, as an African-American male, can you tell our audience how old were you when you had that first interaction with the law?
32.
32.
And the only reason I had that interaction with the law is because I became politically active. And anybody who's political or is politically active can understand what I'm talking about. When someone doesn't like the avenue that you're taking and you're being successful at it, you're going to draw a certain level of scrutiny and attention that's designed to put you in an unfavorable position. Then you need to come to the website, look at the situation that's applicable to you, review the results that I've had personally, and see if that fits where you are. And you might want to order the book, or you might not feel as though you need the book. But it's an avenue that you have that's available.
Leroy, congratulations. You know that you've hit a home run when the very professionals who work in the legal profession and police officers and the general public, you have gained broad professional acceptance, and you've never been to law school. Congratulations.
And the reason that you might come to that conclusion is because in DeKalb County, Georgia, here in 1998, I stood out on the courthouse steps for 365 days straight, with the exception of Saturday and Sunday because the courthouse was closed. I had a permit where I just sold the publications on the steps for a year straight, every day. People saw my commitment, and they just felt like they wanted to get the book. I was out there, snow, rain, sleet, or whatever, 95-degree weather, 20-degree weather.
Wow. This has been a long journey for you. This is not something that just happened last week, last year. You've spent decades with this topic. In February of 1995, you were in the issue Upscale magazine, and what's been going on since those last 18 years?
Right, since February 1993, just been going on tour in the Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, in Alabama, New Orleans, South Florida. Mississippi is very rural. It's still, some areas are still as it was on the movie Mississippi Burning. So I was compelled to go out there and just disseminate the information. So
and because of your political positions and your willingness to get your face out there, so to speak, you've had to to really avoid the public in ways much like a movie star or a famous personality would have to, by changing your route and being aware that that other protesters may follow you into restaurants and libraries and grocery stores and airports and
Right.
assault you in some way.
Well, not necessarily.
Well,
assault me.
verbally.
It's just that I'm
Verbally.
a private. Right. I'm just a private person, and my role is I prefer to be unseen. That's my role. I just like to present the information to the public, but my private time is my private time. I'm a very private person.
You know, I hear that a lot from authors.
Okay.
You know, writing is a solitary work. There is a tremendous amount of research and mental preparation required. You just don't automatically start writing, you know. I mean, things have a sequence, an order, or a world that you're creating, perhaps, with different names and places and universes. So an author really finds that much of what you do is a solitary task. And so bridging that gap, coming on the Artist First World Radio Network with Tony Kaye, putting your voice out there, thank you so much for sharing and spending this time with the public, with us, about your website, arcticbooks.us, and this very timely project that's personal and of course, relevant to all of us. So, audience, we invite you to buy your copy. You won't be disappointed. Get your book and read it and look through it, and then think about your family, your broader family, your neighbors, others that might have use for this book, perhaps a gift for your attorney or for that relative of yours that is a police officer.
Well, I want to thank you for having me, and for your audience, Artist First is an invaluable resource because it allows an author like me to disseminate the information to thousands and millions of people. And the mechanisms that they have where you can pull it up off the archives means that it can last for years and decades beyond the day that we're talking right now. So it's for generations that's not even born yet who will be able to hear this interview.
Leroy, thanks for joining us, for supporting the arts on Artists First, and certainly you're welcome back anytime. Any plans of continuing to write on this topic? Do you have new releases coming out?
Well, I'm going to update the book next year.
Yeah.
With new case law, and so far that's where we're at with it.
Right, expanding what you have there, maybe some additional resource information and so forth.
Right, shepherdize the book.
Yeah.
Keep it current.
Well, congratulations, Leroy. Thanks for being our guest.
All right, you take care.